Welcome back to the blog. My name is Andy Schatz. It's been a little while, so I'm going to give you a broad state of the game of Monaco 2. So we passed out of pre-production back in June, and we're headed for alpha March. That puts us in a weird little spot. Pre-production was meant to answer the questions, what is this game? Is it fun? How do we build it? And alpha is meant to answer a lot more of the specifics. What are the characters? What's the narrative? We've got the big questions answered, and we found some surprising answers too, considering that you'd think that the design would be able to rely pretty heavily on Monaco 1. It turns out we're doing a whole lot of new stuff. But we still got a lot of questions left to answer and a lot of work left to do. And I'm going to need your help answering some of those questions. If you're a fan of Monaco 1, or maybe you weren't a fan, but you're kind of hoping Monaco 2 might be for you, I'd love to hear your input in the comments about the areas where we still have questions left to answer. It's caveat time. Caveat! Title screen! This game is a work in progress. So, everyone knows the graphics are the first thing that's done in a game, right? No, maybe not. So, lighting, shadows, visual effects, skybox are missing. This game is a work in progress. A lot of these things, you don't really notice how much of an effect they have on the polish and the feel of a game until they are missing or until they're there. And we do expect to be dropping a lot of these things in over the next 6 months or so. But for the moment, even though there's all sorts of new art and all sorts of new content and technology and things like that going into the game, it can still look a little rough. So keep that in mind as we show you around. Also, one other caveat. This is a moment of deep shame for me. While there are toilets in the game, they are not yet interactive. Welcome to the mansion mission of Monaco 2. This is an optional mission, and like most Monaco 1 missions, you start with some equipment and an escape vehicle. The front door is right over there, but there is a path leading up this direction, leading over to a door entering into the second floor. So this hints at one of the things that is really core to the magic of Monaco 2, and that is the seamless verticality. You can climb walls, you can go anywhere you want. But this created sort of a problem for us, because in Monaco 1, everyone had to pile into a staircase in order to go up or down floors, which meant people generally needed to stick together. What do you think happens if people don't need to stick together in Monaco 2? Well, some idiot's gonna come over here to the kitchen, making a bunch of noise, and some other idiot's gonna come over here to security wing and try and get this key, make a bunch of noise. Someone's gonna die. So let's say this guy dies over here in security. The guy making a bunch of noise over there in the kitchen has no interest in going to go revive him. It's too far. It takes too long. Why would I bother? I don't need to revive you in order to go up and continue the mission. I'll just do the rest of the mission and then maybe I'll revive you on the way out, right? So this creates a real problem. So we thought to ourselves, well, maybe we just add a respawn button and this guy who died over here in security can just respawn back at the van. No big deal, right? Well, it means that he's got to trudge his way back through the same part of the level over and over and over again. Not very fun. And not only that, it was hard because, well, you've used up all the med kits, the disguises, you've collected all the loot along the way. And so it's really, you're just going through a largely empty level except with all the challenge still there. So what do we do about it? Well, we added checkpoints. I'll revive right here at this checkpoint anytime I die. Now, I might need to get that key over there. And this makes this part of the level just a little mini challenge, and I can attempt this part of this level multiple times. The other thing that we did to make this idea of repeated miniature levels more interesting is that instead in Monaco 1, you had to get 10 coins for each use of your equipment. Well, I really wanted to encourage more use of the equipment, and that meant more equipment around the levels and more ammo for that equipment as well. So you can see that first shotgun I picked up has 4 ammo. That's not because I've picked up 40 coins, it's because anytime I pick up a shotgun, it always gives you 4 ammo for that shotgun. And I can kill these guys, but it's gonna make a bunch of noise. And now I'm gonna have to get out of here because I've used it up. However, I might be able to get away. Let's see if I can get away with this. We'll see. Make my way through here, make my way through here. Maybe even make my way into the bathroom, and there's a disguise right here. I'll grab the disguise and I will be safe. So this disguise will actually replenish after 2 minutes. That disguise will be back after 2 minutes. Now that's long enough that if you're playing through the level as a high level player, you're not likely to come back and get that disguise again. You're only going to hit that disguise once on your way through the level. But if you're not a high level player and you're dying frequently, this gives you the opportunity to retry the same section of the level multiple times and have all of that equipment replenish and have it be something that that gives you sort of these miniature levels. Here's a smoke bomb, in fact. Can I get it without hitting? You know what? Screw it. We've got a disguise on. Let's grab it. Get on out of here. Hide in a closet. So I've got 2 uses of the smoke bomb. One of the other nice things that this does here from a design perspective is that each of these equipment types can have a unique ammo count that comes with it when you first pick it up. So items that are more powerful can have fewer uses when they're initially picked up, and items that are less powerful or more risky can have more uses to them as well. So I'm going to come over here, jump an event, a trusty Monaco style vent, which brings us down here to the first floor. Again, another example of that seamless verticality. Come on over here. We'll turn off one of these lasers, run on through. That one is coming on and off. And use this computer to spawn a virus. This is a classic Monaco 2 style virus. We're also working with other virus types that'll allow us to do other things. So we've got a disguise on this time. Now I burned it up by getting through there or walking right in front of that guy, but maybe I can find a way through. Yes, I might be able to find a way through here to get to that key. Wait a second. There's a path outdoors right out there. And that's the path that leads out to the car. So if I come over here and actually break this window, hop out the window, come in here. One of the guys heard me, of course. Come in here. Oh, that room is filled with bad guys. So I died. So where am I going to respawn? Right back at the last checkpoint, and I only dropped the loot that I collected since the last time I hit that checkpoint. So this system has really led to a much lower barrier to entry for players that struggle to get through the harder parts of the levels, but it doesn't really affect things for the higher level players that are going to want to get through the level without dying at all because of penalties to their final score. And on to the next point of what's working in Monaco 2. Let's talk about what is sure to be the most controversial feature in the game, the procedural generation. Now, when we made Tooth and Tail, we discovered that the procedurally generated maps in the real-time strategy game led to a lot more improvisation and longevity for the game. And that was really core to what I wanted in that game, that I think that, for me at least, the magic in games comes from understanding the systems and being able to handle them in any situation. And Monaco 1 did the same sort of thing, where the coins weren't always in the same place and the guard routes weren't always the same either. And so rather than a traditional speedrun game where you memorize exactly the routes you take and exactly the moves you make, players had to improvise as they played in order to improve their times. We still want to do that here, but even more than that, we want players to be able to plan out unique heists every single time they play the game. And that's what's so special about this recon mode. So when you come in here to the mansion for the first time, you might discover, well, there's the entryway leading to a hallway, leading back to the servants' stairs. And then that leads up to the servants' wing over here where there's a key. Whereas you might find, and then there's another key over here in the kitchen, and over here there's a patio leading to a lounge. There's even a pathway leading up to Berta's room up here on the second story. Now what you might notice here is that each of these rooms is a hand-designed room. They're hand-designed, they have special little backstories, and we can include more and more of this as we continue to build out the content. But this mansion has Francine's room in it, and it has Berta's room in it. And as you go up to the third story, you find the library, and in this case, the cigar room. The master suite is on the top floor, with a panic room and the master bedroom and the sitting room. Each of these is a hand-designed space. The traps are hand-designed, although how you take on these traps might be a little bit different, because the doors to these places might not always be in the same spot. Also, where do the guards spawn? Well, let me use a cheat to show you. So the guards are spawning in preset locations, they actually, the level designer decides which rooms to turn the guards on and which rooms to turn the guards off based upon the difficulty level you choose, and based upon where the rewards and the objectives have spawned. So here in the master bedroom, you can see I can design cute little pieces here that it might be silly, but it's fun to imagine that there's an affair going on between this guard and this little civilian, and we can hand design that. Now, of course, those two guys aren't always going to get placed in every map, or in every instance of the map, but in this case, they were there. And so what you'll find is that there is a certain familiarity to it. We'll still be able to have lots of story and jokes and silliness throughout. But the level really will be played differently each time, because you don't know exactly what equipment you're going to get first. Although the level itself can define, hey, these are the weapon types that are going to be available in this level. So let me show you a second version of the level. And we'll compare it. Here we are in another version of the mansion, and as you can see in this case, we actually have two ways to get in, basically two front doors here. One leading directly into the music hall and another one coming through this foyer, which has a guard in it. The guest wing over here is a small little guest wing off the front door, leading through the main hall over here, back into the dining room and the kitchen. Now, Francine's room and Berta's room are still here, but the ways that you get into them are different, as well as the key locations. We've got a key here in the corner of their home theater. Over here, there's a key in the security room. And as we come up, we still have a library. The positions of these guards, of course, consistent, but I guarantee you that in the previous one, the doors leading into this library room weren't in the same spot. And that means that in this case, with the guards staring directly at these doors, you'll have to approach this room differently. You could come in this door, but it's alarmed. And the AI designer designed that on purpose to make it so that it's harder to get from this library room into this library room, because that's where the key is. So the AI designer said, well, as you come up when you come up these stairs and you come through this library, there's a hard way to go. You can go the slow way around the hallway through to the back side of this library and in here, or you could go the fast way right in through here, through an alarmed door that another AI happens to actually be staring at. But if you look closely, this vent right here, you might be able to pop right into that vent, and it likely comes out over here on the far side of the library. And so you'll find that each mission is a little bit different, and your approach will be different, while it still feels like you've designed the rooms of the level have been hand designed. So let me quickly show the editor. So here we are in that master bedroom, and as you can see, we've got a marker for a civilian here and a marker for a pistol guard. Now those markers are really there just because the game doesn't necessarily spawn them. If instead you wanted to spawn a civilian, you can come in here to all our assets and maybe not that guy. Let's see, it's going to be an actor mob scared is the name of them. So we could stick that guy here, and that would force this guy to always spawn. He's not just a marker. These markers also are things like this marker bedroom is a spot where a chest can spawn, and that has a definition for the types of rewards that can spawn in that location. So it could be a disguise, or it could be a particular type weapon, but it probably does not include health kits or a power switch. It may in fact include a laptop, so there could be a laptop on top of that spot. So all of these spaces are designed by these volumes, and you can create additional volumes here. We'll add one. And then you can take these portals and you can say these are the valid locations for doors, windows, and vents. Maybe on this side over here, we actually only want doors, or maybe we are okay with doors and windows and vents. Maybe in fact, we only want the doors to spawn over there, so we can change these other ones to only be valid as windows or vents, no doors at all. Here we are on the main hall of the bank. It includes an interior balcony, tables down here. This is all just gray box. It's not using real assets yet, but eventually we will have real assets. You can even design certain portals to only connect to certain other types of rooms. So for instance, these portals are portals that are only allowed to connect to the tellers. That's the editor. And one last thing for something that is working well, it is putting dudes into cabinets or hiding bodies in more unexpected places. So what are we still working on in Monaco 2? What are the big questions we still have yet to answer? Well, one of them is character design. Now in Monaco 1, character design went on all the way until the end of the project, so I think this is a pretty normal problem to have. But we are still working through how to get the characters and their abilities to have a central effect upon the game, such that when you're playing one character, you'll play the level entirely differently than when you play another character. So far, we've got 4 characters built out, although with varying degrees of success as to their design. The first character, I'd say, is the one that feels the most locked in stone, although their name is yet really to be determined. We've been using the name Pockets internally, although it's so close to the name The Pickpocket that I'm a little hesitant to use it. The Mule or the Pack Rat are some other possibilities. I'd love everyone's input on names for these characters, as well as their abilities themselves, by the way, as well. So the Mule can pick up to 3 different items, which means that they can run around the environment picking up all the items without having to swap out to their swap out the item that they're carrying. Also, which means that they can use their equipment much more frequently, but it also allows them to choose to use one piece of equipment over another piece of equipment. This seems to have a pretty strong effect upon how the Mule can play the level, because they're able to use their equipment much more frequently. The Prowler is a character that, if you'd asked me a month ago, was it good, I'd say it might even be our best one. But as we've continued to build out the level design using real assets, we've discovered that the parkour elements of the game have really gotten whittled away as we've added railings onto the balconies, walls around the paths. There are far fewer opportunities for the Prowler to use their abilities. And so because of that, we added a dash. And now this is a pretty typical dash. You have 3 uses of it. They recharge over time. But that dash, while actually it works pretty well, doesn't quite feel central to the way you should play the character. It doesn't feel exciting enough for a main character ability. And it also dilutes the idea that this character is about climbing and entering the building in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So we may go back to the drawing board here, or we may just rethink or tweak what already is there. For instance, rather than giving her the ability to run up walls, maybe we give her a grappling hook that can attach to the ceilings and railings in more hand-designed ways. So the Prowler, we're coming along with it. I want to make sure that she's in there in some capacity, but have yet to really design the core of how she works. But I know that when she is in there, you'll approach the level very differently as the Prowler than you will with other characters. Now, the next 2 characters really are way too close to Monaco 1 characters. Ink was an attempt to make a disguise-based character where you activated the disguise with a button rather than having it activate automatically like the gentleman's disguise in Monaco 1. The problem is that if it's activatable, then you need to make sure that there is a cost or a risk to using it, as opposed to in Monaco 1 where the idea was all you had to do was get hidden and it would automatically activate. If we used that same rule set, then there's no point to having the button. You want to have the disguise all the time, so you would just be pushing the button all the time. It's not an interesting choice, it's just a chore to remember. So we've got a little bit more complexity to the way that the Ink's disguise works, but it's really just not working. And so I'd love people's thoughts, not on how to replicate Monaco 1's disguise using an activatable ability, but how to fill that heist trope of a master of disguise using some sort of activatable ability in a way that feels very different from Monaco 1, both in terms of how it's used and what it means as far as who the character is. This last character, of course, is based upon the cleaner. A lot of the times as I've been building out these environments and the mechanics of Monaco 2, we rely on the Monaco 1 mechanics first and then discover what works and what doesn't work. And then we tweak or we change things in order to suit the unique needs of this game. Well, I really do want this character to be a brawler or a to approach the idea of violence in a different way. They shouldn't just be a rehash of the cleaner. And so right now, their ability is basically the same as the cleaner, although you use a button to activate it. But it is likely that they will be a character that will also be able to attack from any angle and perhaps still do additional damage or knock out instantly when attacking from behind. But they should be unique from the cleaner in Monaco 1. It's probably worth noting that while everyone, I think, loves the character of the cleaner, the abilities of the cleaner in Monaco 1 were probably one of the least powerful, least useful of all the classes. And so certainly the cleaner, or here the hand, will be getting a significant redesign. One of the things that we've discovered as we continue to build out this environment is that there are certain areas, for instance, these gardens right here, that end up being inaccessible areas. And so if you were to come through here, go up the stairs, come over here, break a window, you fall out of it, you are now trapped in jail forever. Unless this guy comes and shoots me, which he's going to do, and I'll respawn back at the van. Now he's trapped in jail forever. I didn't spawn back at the van. I spawned back at my last checkpoint. So, this poor guy will never get out. And if that were me, I would have to push and hold the respawn button to respawn at my last checkpoint. I'd rather not have to have a respawn button, or at the very least, I'd like to have it infrequently used. Similarly, it seems a little silly that the character that is supposed to be the parkour character can't just hop right over this fence. And yet, we've taken the jump button out of the game, and we took it out for good reason. The jump button, for instance, couldn't climb over this fence, and while it would still seem that the Prowler should be able to do to climb something like that. Even if we were to discount that, there are some areas in the game where you might end up in a little alcove where the building has built itself a pit or a moat that simply isn't something that you can climb out of, or perhaps you're not playing the Prowler and you can't get out of it anyways. There are more and more instances of that popping up, and that's causing problems for characters, for instance, like the Prowler, but really for all of the characters. So I started thinking about things like, well, we can do some analysis and make some of the windows be unbreakable. But how many of these windows then are even usable at all? How many of them really would be breakable if we didn't allow you to fall into areas that were kind of out of bounds? This, for instance, being an out of bounds roof area. This area back here is not actually an inbounds area. So if I fall off over here, there's no way for me to get back to an in-play area of the game. So I've got to really think about how to solve this problem of frequent out of bounds areas and what we do about them outside of simply pressing a respawn button. And finally, player collaboration. One thing that we have found is that players tend not to stick together. And I think that's true in Monaco 1 as well. In Monaco 1, people go off and do their separate jobs, and then they realign when they come to the staircases. Well, in Monaco 2, the same sort of thing happens, but because there are no staircases that act as choke points for the gameplay, players tend to go off and accomplish their separate objectives in separate parts of the level. And yet, we've found that when we're testing the game, if we just make a little gentleman's rule and say, hey guys, let's stick together this time, what do we find? Well, we found that the game is both more fun and easier. So if it's more fun and easier to stick together, and yet players still move apart, then really maybe it is time to add in some mechanics that either force the players to stick together or highly encourage them, or dare I say it, discourage players from splitting up too far. So Monaco fans, I would love to hear your thoughts on the answers to some of these questions. How do we deal with characters moving to out of bounds areas? What kind of character designs would you like to see? And how do we get players to stick together and collaborate more? I hope you enjoyed the look at the procedural generation, as well as the new mechanics with the checkpoints and the recharging equipment. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.